All right, this, I'm not playing that. Time for a little change of scenery. There we go. Much better. All right, wrapped up here. Sun is above the horizon. I pretty much got Velvia 100 right before the sun got up. Sun started to come over the horizon, and switched over to Portrait 160. So my shutter was probably about 6 seconds long, stopped down to about f32. And I also got, I want to say, maybe around 10 seconds on a couple of the exposures as well. Had to deal with a little bit of reciprocity. But the sun is above the horizon. We got some really hard shadows here. Some like that, some don't. I'm just not a fan of hard shadows. So I'm gonna be heading out of here in just a minute. But what I found really interesting about this particular scene, and I came here about 1.5 years ago. And after a couple hurricanes that have kind of hit the coast near South Carolina, essentially my images that I've shot are no longer going to be the same, because the tree that I once took a picture of is blown over. This is really sad. I really like that tree. I shot that on a black and white, and it was one of my favorite images. But unfortunately, got knocked over. So it's really interesting. The terrain is going to be constantly changing out here. So every time I'm going to come out here is going to be something new. So that's pretty much it for out here. I am going to head out, and I'm going to go get some breakfast. She's a really bad person. She left her coffee cup, paper products. See, right over there. That's the litter bug. For shame. So let's talk about this. So, long story short, I overexposed this image by at least 3 stops. So, you can see this is probably going to be in your middle gray. That's kind of where I metered my exposure off. It just ended up being really, really dark. Whereas if you look over here on this is a good negative. Color negative, metering off the shadows. Slide film, metering off the shadows. Yeah, I messed up. Alright, so let's talk about this. So I screwed up my negative, well, my positive slide. Disappointed about it, but you know what? I took a backup shot, so it's not a total loss. You know, you just can't take your time. You gotta take your time. That's the number one thing out of all this. Apparently I can't open the door. Pretty much screwed up my negative. Oh well. All right, guys, enough with the theatrics. I actually wanted to kind of play on the emotion on what it really feels like when your exposure that you get back from the lab is not what you expected, or even pulling it out of the tank. It's that crushing blow where you got, oh man, I totally messed this up. Originally, I was going to do this whole thing about how important it was to capture things and document it, because we talked about the tree that was blown over and that one tree that's completely gone after going back and looking at the negative. But taking a bad experience and kind of talking about it and, kind of looking back and saying, okay, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better and everything? Because I could have made a whole bunch of excuses and everything, to be honest with you. But, I think ultimately it's just like you messed up, you realize where you messed up, and you learn from it and move on. Yeah, sure, it was Velvia 100 on 4x5. It's a super expensive. That was like $8 blown away. But, that was $8. And but I learned something from it and I moved on. So just something that you guys should at least take into consideration. Just take your time, make sure that your exposure is taken correctly, double check it, triple check it, because color negative, those exposures were great, overexposed. They held on to the detail and the shadows perfectly. The exposure, I think, was in a really good place. So that's what happens. So this next bit, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to switch it up. There was a lot of detail in the shadows on my color negative that came through. My composition wasn't what I wanted it to be, and I think that was just simply because I was rushing. Normally with large format photographers, they take their time. So I didn't. I rushed it, and looking back at it, I'm like, this composition looks like crap. I'm not really happy with it. So I just went ahead and turned it into a panorama. Sure, I lost literally about half the frame, but I got a nice little panorama, and it's a nice big negative. So, I'm still happy with it. So you try to learn from your mistakes, and then you move on with it. So don't freak out when you do mess up. Move on.